In the vast stretches of West Africa, from the shore of the Atlantic Ocean to the heart of the Sahel, a wind rises every year. It is called Harmattan. Harmattan, a dry dusty wind that sweeps down from the Sahara Desert, seems to be evolving in the 21st century, bringing with them new challenges and shifting patterns that leave scientists, farmers and communities grappling with its impact. Join us as we take you through the story of Harmattan and how it is transforming in the modern age, affecting millions of lives in Nigeria. Harmattan is more than just the season in Nigeria. Its presence has been felt for generations, shaping the environment, agriculture, culture, and daily life. It is a weather phenomenon that occurs annually between late November and March. Originating from the Sahara Desert, the dry dust-laden winds blow southwards, bringing cooler temperatures to the region. The winds can be so intense that they obscure the sun, casting a hazy blanket over the landscape. Harmattan is essentially the dry phase of the year, with temperatures dropping during the night, sometimes dipping as low as 12 degrees Celsius in certain regions. This wind carries fine sand particles, which significantly reduce visibility and creates a dusty haze.
The seasonal system in Nigeria is controlled by two factors: this northeast trade wind and the southwest wind. The southwest wind comes from the Atlantic and brings heavy downpour because it's humid, it's moist, it's warm. The resultant effect of it will give us rains. So when they are gone, based on the season, the movement of the Earth's movement and the sun's movement, what the sun doesn't really move. Our movement of the direct impact of the sun. And now the northeast trade wind dominates and comes down to the coast, resulting in Harmattan. What they call Harmattan is just a dry dust, hasty wind that comes from the north, originating from the deserts. So that's why we have it. It has its own time. At the end of it, when the impact when we are rotating away from and the impact is gone, we now enter another season. So it's a question of season, times and season. Check out in the night. Very cold in the night. We're now talking about diurnal pattern. Very cold in the night, very hot in the day. That's not what it should be. That's the change. But when it's morning and the sun comes, the haze is there, it begins to be hot. So it's a season of extremes. When we were looking at diurnal regime, daily regime, in the night it's extremely cold, in the day it's extremely hot. That pattern will go for some time before it changes.
For centuries, Harmattan has been a part of life in Nigeria. While it brings some relief from the heat of the rainy season, it also brings with it a series of challenges, from respiratory issues to the destruction of crops. For farmers, the dry conditions bring about a harsh reality: water scarcity, crop damage, and reduced yields. For health concerns, the dust particles carried by the winds pose a serious risk to respiratory health, leading to increased cases of asthma, cough, and other lung diseases.
Climate change affects almost everything. Almost everything, I can say so. If it affects society, it affects health. You know that now, what have you're going to hear people It's the air. The air has changed. The constituent of the air is not conducive. People are having cough. Now, it will affect even clothing. Do you know why a typical Hausa traditional dress is baggy. It's because of climate, and we don't know about it. That's why when they wear those baggy, this it gives them air. If you dare wear this one there, and that's why they have those flowing gowns. So climate affects even the culture, the lifestyle, the culture, the food, the health, everything. So changes leaves footprints on those ones. What we're suffering now is the impact of food. If you go to the riverine areas where we are, you know that if you notice, there's a time that Ina comes on. Why is it there now? It's not there now. That's climate. It has a seasonal pattern. When they leave the ocean and they come to the shallow waters to lay eggs, that's when they catch them. And they say in our season, you understand? Yeah. They migrate in numbers because they can't lay their eggs in the high seas. They come to the shallow waters to lay eggs and breed before they go back. So there is nothing you can think about now that climate change doesn't affect.
In some regions, the Harmattan winds now arrive earlier, last longer, or blow with more intensity than before. Research shows that Harmattan's patterns are shifting. Warmer ocean temperature, deforestation, and changes in land use are altering wind patterns. This means that the season may become harsher, with more extreme dust storms and longer dry spells. As the world grapples with the effects of climate change, the familiar winds of Harmattan are no longer as predictable. Scientists are tracking changes in the wind patterns. The drying of the Sahel, desertification, and deforestation are all contributing to these changes. As Nigeria continues to urbanize and industrialize, the environment is under pressure in ways it has never been before.
Harmattan in the 90s still remains Harmattan, cold, dust. Harmattan in the 1920s is still same Harmattan. The only difference is intensity and the duration. And the intensity and the duration of the Harmattan varies. There's so many factors responsible for changes in the intensity. But I know everybody allocates every change down to climate change. So I would generally say so, climate change. You know the problem with climate change, climate has always been changing. But what we call climate change now is global warming. What we will call it global warming because it's man-made. So climate has always been changing, and we are also helping to cause the change. So global warming. So those are the major factors that are responsible. We have the sun itself has a cycle, mostly 11-year cycle, where it comes stronger and when it shrinks, depending on what we call sunspots. The activities on the surface of the sun that darkens it and reduces the intensity of the emission. It shows an 11-year cycle. So those are very complex phenomena that results in what we have now. Global warming is it's like climate change, but the cause of the change is what we emphasize, which is man-made, anthropogenic warming, caused by activities of man, resulting in the intensity of the change. That's what we call global warming. But the normal climate change varies over years. But now that we have intensified the change because of our activities, that's what we call global warming. Whatever human beings are doing to increase the concentration of carbon dioxide, what we call anthropogenic gases, methane, like if I ask you not to eat cow, will you? Because production of cow produces methane. So all those gases, what we call anthropogenic gases, are caused by human activities, and they increase the presence of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and other gases that trap the heat. What happens is the heat comes from the sun, they hold it, Instead of allowing it to go back, they keep it back. That's the simple phenomenon that results in global warming.
Despite the challenges posed by Harmattan, Nigerians have shown remarkable resilience. Across the country, communities have adapted to the shifting winds, finding ways to mitigate its impact. Farmers are expected to plant certain crops that can tolerate dry conditions and water those that need watering. Even urban dwellers are advised to wear masks, use air purifiers, and drink more water to stay hydrated.
We have two major strategies: adaptation and mitigation. Over time, like I've given you example of, over time, the people in the north, they now know what to wear. That's why they will wear white. Most of them will not wear dark something, because over years they are adapting to the environment. They know that if you wear dark something, it will retain more heat. They now prefer the white. Now, it's now becoming a common thing. In fact, these days, every ceremony say white. I don't know whether we are beginning to adapt to the heat in the dry season. Yesterday, I went to a ceremony. They said, come with white, white, and white. So I wore white, and it was comfortable. Unlike if I wore other things. So those are adaptation strategies we are trying to learn over it. In farming, the same thing happens. In fishing, the same thing happens. In health, the same thing happens. We are adapting. The mitigation part of it is a little more cumbersome, because we have to confront the factors that are causing the problems and see how we can reduce those factors. That's what we call mitigation. But adaptation is we just amend ourselves a little to these conditions and make ourselves comfortable. One of the major mitigation strategies for us should be planting forest, reforestation. Because there are two major carbon sinks: the forest and the ocean. If you have those two major carbon sinks, you can reduce your footprints of carbon dioxide, and you'll be a little more comfortable.
Okay, but we have the ocean, right?
We have the ocean.
But the forest,
it's almost dying. We are reducing the forest, so we should reforest our lands. It will help. Cut down one tree, plant 10. Does that make sense? For you to cut down one tree, you must plant 10. If the government enforces it, it's possible. In civilized places, you don't see open spaces. People build houses and check out America, where they live in big trees, behind big trees, big forests. People are living there. We plant those trees. In our environment, those trees serve a lot of purposes. One, serve as timber. You cut it down, you plant another one. It serves as windshields, it checks excess wind, and it serves as a shade. So, apart from its natural process of collecting carbon. So you see, Harmattan is a phenomenon that exists. In the night, cover yourself. In the day, wear light things and take a lot of fluid. Those are adaptation strategies. We are trying to adapt to it. Farmers, market garden, people in town, they should water their plants now. I don't know. We don't really have irrigation agriculture anymore, but small, water your plants. This is dry period. Give your plant enough water to survive. Those are things for every plant, it has a threshold of temperature, a threshold of water, it requires a threshold of everything. So that's why if you want to do an experiment, you put it in a greenhouse where you regulate the temperature, you regulate the water input, so that you can see, does it do better with this or that. So farmers, academic, or what they call it, they will inform them of the threshold value of, if you're planting water leaf, how much water should you apply? When should you apply it? Those are technical things that if you just plant and pour water on it, or pour it anytime, it's hot like this, you go and pour you're killing the plants.
As we move further into the 21st century, Harmattan's presence in Nigeria remains as constant as the winds themselves. But its changing phase, brought about by the interconnected forces of climate change, urbanization, and pollution, has altered the way it interacts with the land and the people. The future of Harmattan is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The winds will continue to blow, and Nigeria must adapt to the new changes they bring. In the face of these challenges, Nigerians' resilience and ingenuity shine. For as long as the Harmattan winds blow across the land, the people will find ways to endure, adapt, and thrive. The winds may be changing, but the spirit of the people remains unbroken. I am Esther Otoye. Keep enjoying our programs on Spectrum TV.